Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties here. I'll just go ahead and bring up, well, I have all the links up already. So last meeting in November, we talked very briefly about the goals and work plan. And so tonight we're going to come back and have another discussion about that, along with upcoming certified local government grant program deadline. So every 2 years we can apply for the CLG grant from the state, and the application due date is February 23rd. So I'll be putting together a grant application. Last time around we funded, I think, a preservation workshop on window repair, I believe, and these brochures that just got mailed out that you saw last time as well. So the printing, the design and printing of those brochures. So the grant can pay for projects and actual nominations, programs, educational programs, trainings, and so it's pretty broad. And we've got some ideas that I can share with you, but I just kind of want to get a feel for what the board would like to do for that grant for this 2-year cycle. And then I would go ahead and put together a grant application based on your guidance. And along with that discussion is kind of dovetails into that is just overall goals and work plan for the HRB this year. So, would you like me to start with the grant conversation?
Please, but you did mention the election of...
Oh, should we do that when the meeting starts at 7, or should we do that now?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
What, procedurally, does it matter?
No.
Okay.
We can just have a work session first and then come back at 7 and...
For those who weren't involved in that earlier discussion, we discussed the first meeting of the year is typically when we elect the chair, and that would be this meeting. However, there may be extenuating circumstances in that the 5th position on the board is vacant now, but may not be by the time we have our next meeting. And question, should we wait until then or get it over with now? That's up to us. Your thoughts?
Did they appoint anybody?
The
mayor has not appointed anyone to represent the chamber.
Yeah.
So there's still...
I think we could probably do that when Claire gets here. It seems like we probably want to elect someone that's not a brand new member to the board. Generally.
Could be.
I mean,
yeah.
So
what do you think?
I don't know.
I'm flexible. To me, I don't see it as a deal breaker either way. I think Grant's suggestion is good that we wait until Claire gets here, and then we'll have 4 of us to vote on it and call it good.
Yeah, the reason why we're having this discussion is because we didn't put it on the agenda, and then we acknowledged that we need to do something, so.
Oh.
So
in that case, it's easier just to say next meeting.
whatever you guys would like to do. We didn't notice it, but you don't really have to notice it, but nobody had notice. So, we can let that settle until the 7 o'clock meeting? Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. And sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead.
For the CLG grant, it is given out every 2 years. It's available to every certified local government in Oregon. And so a lot of different jurisdictions including Oregon City, are certified local governments, meaning they have a historic preservation program and they meet certain kind of baseline requirements for preservation. The grant, the maximum grant award is $12,500, and there's a 1-to-1 match required. The city budgets $10,000 as a match. So typically we would apply for a $10,000 grant. We'd match it with $10,000 of our own that's been budgeted. And we can use the funding for activities that occur in this calendar year or in 2019. I think we have until sometime the fall 2019 to actually use the money. So knowing that I'm going to be gone and not able to really do a whole lot for like Preservation Month, for example, this year, it is something that if we want to do some Preservation Month activities next year, 2019, I'll be back and I can better manage that. And so I don't want you to think that, you know, this year's the only time we can do that.
Can I ask, when are you due?
March 15th.
Oh. March
Yeah.
15th.
And I'll be out for about 4 months. So I'll be back in July, and Preservation Month is May. So we might not have a whole lot going on this year, I think, for Preservation Month.
Just do the proclamation.
Yeah, we'll do a proclamation, but as far as really like having a lot of programming, it's probably not something that we can handle with staff this year, but for 2019 we can, and the grant funding is good through 2019, so we can always save it for next year.
Is that, sorry, go ahead.
All right, it's just, are the local Oregon City side of the funds, are those restricted on a time period? I don't recall.
The fiscal year ends July, it's a 2-year budget cycle, so it ends July 2019, so we're fine there as well.
I was going to ask, for several years when I was on the board, we did the yearly award. Do you guys still do the award thing? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's it for May,
Yeah.
and that's a very simple, easy
Yeah.
piece of cake,
Mm-hmm.
low stress thing,
Mm-hmm.
and call it good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that's what you're saying is keep things simple, I guess. Maybe.
Okay, that's a good point. The Ruth McBride.
Yeah,
Award.
that thing.
And I think that's something that we'll ask you to come maybe next meeting in February, maybe with some ideas, some nominations. I think the timing for that is right for next meeting, so that you can begin talking about that. So I spoke with some of our other departments, including Parks and Public Works. So of course, the city does own some National Register sites, properties. And so one idea that our Parks and Rec director had was getting a boundary and or topographic survey of Promenade Park. The McLaughlin Promenade has recently been added to the National Register, and we don't have a boundary survey. There are lots of houses and private properties that are right adjacent to that on, technically, I think their address, some of them is Promenade Street. And so we don't have good information on the actual boundary lines and then on the topography. And so having something like that would help us manage that property and maintain that property into the future. And so that's an eligible activity for this grant funding. So that was one idea that came from Parks. As far as projects and programs go, another idea I think that folks had last meeting was walking tours of Promenade, maybe the elevator, but both of those are on the National Register. And, you know, having public educational walking tours of historic sites is another good grant eligible activity. So coupling that with maybe 2019 Preservation Month is one idea. And then other eligible activities are conferences and trainings. And I think it's probably been a while since the board members, got to do any training or conferences. And so if it's something that you're interested in, there are a lot of opportunities in state and even out of state if you'd want to go to like the national conference. So there's Oregon Heritage Conference in Bend. It's actually in April, and we can use grant funding to pay for your travel costs there. I don't even think there's a conference fee. And I have some information on the agenda, some of the topics that are going to be kind of offered at that conference. So I'll give you a copy of that. Take one and pass it, please. And so the dates for that conference, it's April 11th through 13th of this month. If any of you are interested in going to that, we can fold that into our grant application. There is the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. They have a conference in July in Des Moines, Iowa. And that would be available to, of course, staff or board members. And so I've got a little handout about that, but there's not a whole lot of information. I've been told it's a really good conference, though.
And this one in April's in Bend over 3 days, looks
Yes.
like. I've been to Iowa. Nothing there is worth going to.
I grew up in Iowa. So.
Really? I've been to like Keokuk, Fort Madison. Where did you grow up?
Cedar Rapids. I went to College of Ames right by Des Moines.
I've been to Cedar Rapids, yeah. I'll be darned.
You might have a place to stay then.
Yeah, perhaps.
Go team.
So those are the kind of the conference opportunities, and then there's training opportunities, mostly I would say for staff, and that includes potential training for Parks and Public Works staff on maintenance of historic structures, since we do have assets in the city that we maintain. We want to make sure that our staff knows how to do that properly without damaging anything. And so there could be training opportunities out there for those staff. And then for me, essentially, because I'm the one preservation planner, there are some training opportunities that I could take advantage of, including the University of Oregon Historic Preservation Field School, which I think happens usually in the fall or late summer of every year. And I don't have any details on that, but because I'm new to the position, I think taking advantage of some training early on could be really valuable for the program for the city. So that's what I have as far as suggestions for grant applications, for grant projects, and I'm open to hearing more from you or any kind of guidance on what I've presented.
Sounds groovy.
All of it?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to go to Iowa?
No. Ben, maybe, but the topics aren't really, I don't know. Some of it's kind of good.
I would not be able to go to Iowa in any circumstances because of the scheduling conflict that I already know about. But Bend would be a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at stuff.
I think we may enhance our knowledge of things and possibly even our credibility.
Yeah, there's some.
Yeah, I think, well, I think some of the things you mentioned about training for staff sound pretty good to me.
Good.
The survey, a little unclear on what the benefit, I guess I kind of understand why it would be easier to maintain the park and that if you have a clear understanding of where the boundaries are, if that's ambiguous right now.
Is there anything from SHPO this year for any workshops or seminars? Or is it just this?
It's the Heritage Conference,
I mean, but is SHPO doing anything
not,
that you know of? Or-
so they have the Heritage Conference and then they have a CLG workshop every fall. And there's no cost to that. It would just be travel. So this 2017, it was in Canby. So it was super easy. Christina and I both went. And you all would be invited to go to that. So if it's always, it could be anywhere in Oregon in any of the certified cities. And so we don't know where it would be in 2018, but travel, like the grant could pay for travel expenses for board members to go to that. I don't see any other, I haven't seen any other SHPO workshops or trainings or anything on their
That's what
website.
yeah, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have adequate guidance there? I know we've been a little bit vague on this. I didn't,
Well, it sounds like some conference, there might be some interest in conferences from the board. There's support for staff training. But we're not sure about this promenade survey, and I didn't hear anything about the educational walking tours.
well, I'll say something about the promenade survey. Boundaries of parks can be an important issue, as we know. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know if a survey of Waterboard Park would have been of any value during deliberations last year, but if we can avoid contentious situation, if a survey of Promenade Park would keep us out of confusing situations, then I'm for it.
Okay. I can explore more with our parks department about, how we would use that and how it would be helpful. And then if that's kind of all we've got, we can maybe see if we can get a majority of the money to potentially go toward the survey, and the rest of it for conferences and trainings. And then maybe we can set a little bit aside for some sort of programming related to 2019 Preservation Month, whether it's the educational walking tours or some other sort of workshop. I know we talked a little bit about workshops and educational seminars last meeting, but I don't have anything specific in mind at this time, but we can come up with something before February 23rd. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So the rest of this item is, we've got the city commission goals up here. And then we can see if you all want to talk about maybe some work plan items for this year that potentially could be related to the city commission goals. So let's see. We have successful economic development, cove, landfill, industrial lands, railroad quiet zone, tourism plan, economic development plan, Willamette Falls Legacy Project. Sorry, I'm just gonna scroll through and see if any of this is relevant to our work. Address critical facility needs, public works, community development, police, parks, maintenance, deferred maintenance of parks. So I guess that one may be somewhat related to maybe Promenade Park. Beaver Creek concept plan, houseless community members, affordable housing, sewer, stormwater, waterfront master plan. No, okay.
The only goal that would be relevant, there's an economic development goal that talks about just generally streamlining and bringing transparency to the review process. So that's something we would always strive to do every year, is to make sure that we have a very transparent and open and easy to follow along process.
Okay. Oh, yeah, here we go. Transparency, community engagement. Okay. Increase opportunities to connect with the community. So nothing specific to the Historic Review Board, but good to know what those are. And then from 2015, 2016, the last time HRB set any goals or work plan, this is what was included. So we had Preservation Month, activities, apply for the CLG grant. So that I feel like is probably still on our list. Delist landmarks that have irretrievable loss of integrity and or were demolished. I don't think that we got anywhere with that goal last time. I don't think we've delisted anything in the past 2 years.
I think this is the same goals that we set every year for several years on
Okay.
the board. And they're all good stuff. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
It's all important.
Inform, I think, number 4, we would continue to do that if that makes sense. Revise the city website. I think.
On number 4, maybe we could add mention of the locks in there.
Okay.
I think that's a historic issue and also a economic issue.
Oh, there's Claire. Okay.
Good goals.
Revising and updating the website. That's really staff's job, and I think some of that was done, and that can continue. So I think here's the meat of it: is policy discussions.
Hey, nothing's working on the left side, so we're all over here.
Welcome. Sorry. So I think the plan was to hold work sessions before a majority of the meetings so that the board could discuss policies, potential updates to policies. And I'm not sure if the Breezeways one that's on the list from back then was dealt with at all.
There was issues we had before that with breezeways that came up that was like a sticky wicket that I think it was something like, oh, we should talk about it in a goal if that needs to be. I mean, this was the years that I was on. What do we do with these things? Because everybody wants a breezeway, but they're not in the district.
The breezeways we somewhat settled this last year through a couple of decisions. But
And-
the other issues, the solar panels and fences that were on
The breezeways, what happened with that? Was it like, okay, they're going to be acceptable, or is it a case by case? Because it was always,
So far, it's case by case.
and that's how we
Okay.
did it before, and everybody thinks it was okay, and most of the time we didn't seem to.
It came up, I believe, on 2 properties, 2 applications in Kenema last year. One of them, we allowed the covered breezeway because it was essentially within the envelope of the home design. The other one, we disallowed it because it wasn't. It was a detached garage, and for any number of aesthetic reasons, we determined not to do that. So case by case,
That's
Seems to be
working.
the best way to do it, you think?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
I think some flexibility in the case of David Green's application where it seemed like, given the space and the layout of the house, it just didn't work to not allow the cover over it, so we did. And I don't remember what the floor plan was right now. I remember the discussion that we had about it.
So it sounds like maybe breezeways wouldn't be on our list of policy discussions, but what I have on the commission report is solar panels. I think we have the list of 10 right now, HRB policies. I think, and this is kind of what I've gathered from Christina, as well as that they could use some eyes on them and potentially some updates and some revisions. And then there are a few kind of items that haven't been tackled because it's newer technology, for example. So, solar panels are becoming more and more popular, and we don't have an adopted HRB policy on solar. And so that could, if we did, that could offer a lot of guidance to applicants and to staff, so that I know when I can approve something on a staff level and when I need to take it to the board.
Isn't there solar panels in the design guidelines for where they can be placed on the roof? Pretty sure there is.
We have somewhere, something that talks about,
I remember
if they're
pictures.
not visible.
Yeah.
Like in Kanema, the small village, they're talking about doing, oh no, that was skylights, never mind.
So I think that's on designated structures as well. And so it just might be worthwhile for us to have a conversation about, do we want to adopt a clear policy on solar panels to add to that, our list of 10 HRB policies. So fiberglass windows seems to be a thing that everybody wants to do now, fiberglass clad. And there are, right now, we essentially have them show us exactly so that we can look at it, so staff can look at it and determine whether it looks like it's metal, essentially. And
That's in new construction. I don't think we've ever authorized a fiberglass window in a historic structure.
right.
Okay.
Are there any policies from the National Trust as far as the solar panels? Have they done any kind of a opinion or policy, anything?
Yeah, I'm not
From
sure,
them?
but that would be something that I could bring, if we did make it a work session item in our work plan, then, I could bring that information to the board.
So we're not recreating the wheel?
Yeah. So fiberglass windows, the quality of them is getting a lot better, and so they are, I think that's a kind of a change in technology, I guess, that might make you want to revisit your policy on that. The fence policy is a little bit outdated and vague, could use some help. We've had some people reporting to us that there are, retaining walls going up on historic designated structure properties. We don't really have a lot to say about walls and, masonry walls in our policies. And so, if that's something that the board would want to give more detail on, so that it can give staff more guidance and give the public more guidance, that's a conversation we can have. So I think that's what that number 6, goal, was back in 2015. And if you'd like to keep this, on our list for a work plan, then we could, you know, at each meeting, we can kind of decide at the next meeting, you know, what would we like to discuss in our work session? You know, what policy we're going to tackle next time.
Of the things you mentioned, I think the solar panels and the fences are, solar panels, because they're going to become increasingly popular, and if it isn't a problem or a challenge today, it will be. And fences, because there's a lot of confusion about fences,
Yeah.
about what is and isn't.
Yeah, the fences and the retaining walls and.
I need to check in.
Okay. And maybe we
Oh, I'm
could
not there.
take a look at the policies in general, as well at a work session, and maybe just walk through them and
I
see if
think
any of
Kimberly
them could
checked
use some
you in.
updating.
Did you click her in, right?
Well, Claire is having trouble checking in, just like I did.
Because there's a Janet Mann, but there's no
Yeah,
me.
Oh,
but
no.
Yeah,
there's no me either. I logged in as Janet Mann.
Oh, you did?
It's okay.
That's
what I
why
thought.
you can't.
We don't
It was-
vote with them anyway.
Oh, so just sign in?
Yeah, you don't even.
There's no Claire.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
We'll fix it.
dropped.
Well, we should have your name up here at least.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see?
It's here somewhere.
Yeah, I have it. It's in the back. Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Show up late, that's what you get, right? I have another meeting.
Okay.
We'll get
So
that
dedicated.
for the real meeting.
Well, is there anything the board would like to add, to the work plan? Or remove from this
I
list?
do, I guess it's sort of in the transparency goal there, but there were a number of cases last year where people were, you know, disgruntled or whatever because they, and I think it's mostly because they didn't understand the process or where they were at in the process or what the next steps were and that sort of thing. I don't know exactly what we can do to make it more transparent, whether it be something on the web page or some kind of literature that better explains the process or the joint historic review board and planning commission and how that works together and with this and the geo, you know, there's so, you know, how many times did we have people bring up
Things that,
geotechnical review type issues in this and these meetings and didn't understand that that's a separate review process, that sort of thing.
so are you proposing some kind of a public education document? Or,
Well, maybe we can just include that as a goal that to investigate ways that we could, as in one of the working sessions, maybe we could talk about or
That typically
come up with
happens
some
at the
ideas of how we
staff.
could.
yeah,
I mean, the staff, usually you guys screen, but I think people just naively sometimes think when they're coming to a meeting, they're coming for an all-inclusive thing. And I think when you guys get the permits or the applications, I guess they just always seem to sometimes assume that they're going to talk about a geo thing or they're going to talk about,
Whatever, yeah.
yeah, whatever that
It's
is.
outside of our
the
purview.
applicant would be informed at the counter in the planning office, but
Yeah.
the general public
Yeah, that's true.
wouldn't. They're the
Usually this is the
ones
stopgap.
who displayed that confusion over just what are the boundaries of Hrb Authority.
Well, we could take a work session to look at, how we notice our applications and what sort of information we post. So how what the public sees and then how they navigate through that, if you wanted to kind of look at that and offer suggestions.
That would be a worthy addition.
One thing we do as well is, in addition, there's so much on the website, and I think sometimes it's a little daunting and a bit of a web.
Well, you have to know what you're gonna look for too.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
We do assign a planner at each neighborhood association, And so that planner visits each neighborhood association twice a year and provides presentations. And so it may be good to look at more of just, instead of them coming to us going to them, and at those neighborhood associations, just briefly talking about the HRB process. We try and do that at least once a year to both McLaughlin and Kenema to talk about what the purview is and how we administer historic review board. We kind of think about that or dig into that a little bit more.
When someone makes an application to come before the board and, all that, there just be even like a simple page in there that says, at this meeting, this will be discussed. At this meeting, this will not be discussed. This isn't. Something like that, that's just one more part of your application. At this meeting, these are the things.
If they read it.
Yeah, if
you
they
can
read
provide
it.
it.
I mean, it could be something as simple as that, but the reality is people are still going to be like the rest of us and get lazy or be naive and still ask the same questions and then get a little disgruntled. It's probably an inevitable thing.
Another thing, through the chamber, they have what's called an eGMOC. And I know it goes to a lot of the business owners, but we do publish it and stuff, is to have, it's called an educational GMOC. So you're not mingling as far as, networking, but it's discussing things like we have one coming up about recycling and, and that type of thing. But, get to know your local government type, maybe have it at, usually we get between 60 and 75 people. So, you'd be limited as far as where you could have it, but just having like the planning department, public works, so that, and kind of have, and do PowerPoint to kind of show a breakdown and, just because a lot of people, if you asked, Joe Blow something, they probably, wouldn't know. But, it doesn't, other than the time for people, it doesn't cost anything and, it'd be open to the public.
And we do have, as
Other
of
resources.
this month, a community communications coordinator, Kristen Brown at the city, who can help us support all the city departments to make sure that we understand places where we can communicate better. And
But
so
that
she
would
can help
be,
us crack this nut too.
but that, that would just be one, kind of thing. And you should get people from different, parts and stuff. So usually it's pretty eye-opening.
Okay, so I will add to this, we'll keep what's on the list, add the locks to item 4. On item 6, instead of breezeways, we're gonna look at solar panels, fences, and the overall policies, review of the overall policies, and then add a 7th goal to investigate ways to improve our communications to the public about the historic review process. So we can have a work session about that and maybe a session where we invite people in to get to know us and our process. Does that sound like a plan?
It does.
Great. Well, we have dinner ready behind you if you want to break and then come back at 7.
Okay. We will.
I wasn't sure how late I'd be getting here, so I
To order. First item on the agenda is public comments. I do not have any comment cards from anyone. So I'm assuming there's no public comments. That takes us to item number 4, for AMD 1707 modification to HR 14-10, historic review for a new single-family home in the Kenema district at 712 4th Avenue. The house is already built, and this is a minor modification to the house, and you must be the applicant or representing the applicant.
Chair Basinger, these 2 items are public hearings, so we
Yes.
technically have to read the script. Do you need that or do you have it?
I always look forward to this part.
Oh, and before we started that, did you want to talk about, now that Claire's here? Or did we make a decision already?
did we make a decision? Was
I
the
wouldn't hear
question
it.
of whether we were going to elect our chair tonight or wait until we have a full board?
Oh, for 2018.
Right, yeah, so,
I'd
we didn't
wait
put
till-
election of the chair on the agenda. So what we could do, instead of adding it to the agenda now and then doing it, is, we could wait until we have our 5th member. And then we can make sure it gets on the agenda for February or March, whenever that is.
We can,
February would be good.
March,
we can work through it.
depending on when this interview is or
Yeah,
whatever.
All right, that's what we'll do then.
okay, great, thanks.
So this is a description of quasi-judicial hearing process. And we read this at every public hearing. I think we have just the one on the agenda tonight. One public hearing on land use application is scheduled for tonight. A staff report has been prepared for the application.
There's two.
There's
There are
two applications.
There are two.
Yeah.
And a staff report has
Could be
been
2 houses.
prepared for both.
Could be more.
And submitted to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart on the wall. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which cards are received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony by stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the public record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the public record, copies must be submitted to city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence or testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow local government or its designee to respond to the issues precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So, we will now open the record for file number HR
MD.
I've got to change pages here. What, we are at,
18 dash,
actually,
HR.
we're using MD 17-07. We'll open the public record for that, starting with staff report.
Thank you, Chair. We have a modification proposal to a previously approved file. It was HR 1410, so back a few years. And the house has been built. One of the materials that was used it didn't really meet the original proposal or the conditions of approval, and so it was necessary to come back and get a modification or request a modification from the board for this material. And if the board approves the modification, then the applicant can get a final certificate of occupancy and be totally finished with the project. If the board does not approve the modification, then the applicant would essentially have to change out the material to something that would have been approved originally. So the applicant has a representative here today that can kind of talk to you about the material itself and the details there, but I'll just give a quick summary. The original condition of approval from HR 1410 was that all railings, decking, and stairs should be finished to match the house body or trim. And of course, we know, wood is required. But there are new products out there these days, very popular products, composite decking. In order to kind of make maintenance easier and maybe have a longer lasting porch, the applicant elected to use this composite decking material. So you can kind of see it in the photo there. And then just to give you the context of the entire house, as seen from the public right-of-way, the picture on the left is looking from Blanchard Street. And so you can kind of see the underside of the porch, a little portion of it from that view. And then the picture on the right is the view from 4th Avenue up the driveway. And because of the elevation of the house, it is very difficult to see this material on the house. And so this, staff looked at this. Sorry, when it hit there. So staff looked at this and determined that the request is reasonable. It's really not very visible from the street, and I recommend that if you that your decision on this is specific to this particular request. If you want to tackle composite decking as a material overall, I would suggest that you do so in a separate conversation instead of just a blanket approval to use this material. So I think that in this context, it could be appropriate.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
I think now we will ask the applicant's representative to come up and
Chair Basinger, I'm Mark Beerwagon. I'm the home builder representing Ron and Debbie Beislein. And I think that I'll probably just open it up to you guys for questions, but I want to just mention a couple things. So this picture here, you're actually looking at the bottom side of the deck. And that was something that was actually not considered. The approval criteria require that you cannot, that pressure-treated lumber should not be visible, and because the house plans that were presented for the during the presentation to the board were two-dimensional. Essentially, you didn't have the sight line underneath. So so what you see there is actually, it's a paint grade material, but it's a composite. So it's like a hardy product as opposed to a wood product. And that's on the underside of the soffit of the deck. And then the top side is using this hardy product, or this Trex product, which I have an example of here. Not a great example, but something that you can look at. And as staff mentioned, the Trex decking that is on the top side is really not visible from either sight line from either Fourth or Blanchard. What is visible, as you can see the steps there, those steps are not, both the risers and the treads of the steps have wood applied to them to meet the criteria. So they're not the visible area of the porch. The deck stairs does have wood product.
Why didn't they use the wood product on the deck?
I think just for cleanliness, just to be able to keep it clean and so on. Knowing that actually the approved surface for the deck, it was a liquid applied membrane.
I don't remember that.
Was it what? I'm sorry.
Was Geico deck.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I remember dealing with this for a long time, years ago. And it's a cool house. It looks cool now. It looks better than it was on paper. But I gotcha.
So the change was, it was an alternate to what the architect had designed and got approved, because he was the one that was shepherding it through the process, which was, a different application.
And that sample you brought is representative of what
the
they're using?
Trex product that's on the deck surface around the porch.
And how is the underside different from the
The underside is essentially, it's painted the same. It's painted like the trim. It's painted the trim color, so it, other than the fact that it's not wood, it complies with the.
But it's the same type of material?
It is not. It's fiber cement. It's like
panels.
Yeah.
Oh, hard.
Same
Oh,
as the
hard
siding.
board.
It's
Yeah.
like hardy trim, so it's a thick product.
Right.
Yeah.
And the railings and posts are
wood.
wood.
Done correctly.
What's the soffit on the main level? Same, hardy?
Up above,
Yeah, on the main deck. What's that soffit?
what's visible in the ceiling of the soffit is
Up here?
Yeah.
it's
there.
it's wood. It's
wood.
It's vertical grain.
It's a TNG.
It's a TNG V groove. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Sorry. You're fine.
Anything else? Anybody have any questions that you haven't already asked?
To follow up on your question about, or maybe it was your question, John, about why didn't they use Trex or wood throughout? It was just Mr. Beislein's, desire was to use something that he wouldn't have to service and replace as needed, knowing that he will have to maintain and kind of fuss with the steps. He wanted to kind of limit the maintenance.
Gotcha.
So, any other questions?
I have no questions. Grant?
No.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, the staff recommendation was go back.
Would you like me to repeat it?
You can just click on it as long as it's working.
Can't get on mine.
Come on,
I ended up in the wrong place.
there we go.
Staff report.
Come on.
It's at the front, isn't it?
Huh?
The first part, right?
I can't get it to,
The city
Well,
does
just-
not
I guess you have
have
to use that.
a guideline
Huh?
regarding decking material on
Well,
new
yeah.
construction.
Generally, we just kind of have a general condition that's applied to new construction that,
So it's right at the top.
requires
There we go.
wood or natural materials.
Oh.
Or, historically appropriate materials, which I think the board has always found to be wood.
Excuse me.
And so we don't have any specific policies on, when composite materials are appropriate and not appropriate.
I didn't think have we allowed a lot of composite? I didn't think we had.
We have, so when we're dealing with more modern materials, the board has approved non-historic materials such as fiberglass windows, cement board siding. Both of those materials have been deemed appropriate within our 2 historic districts. And so I think this is kind of a similar situation. We just haven't specifically made findings before on composite decking material.
And that might be a good thing to use for a workshop, for a work session.
Nevertheless, the recommendation here is that the proposed modification can meet the requirements as described in the municipal code. Therefore, the community development director recommends the Historic Review Board review file 1707 based upon the findings and exhibits contained in this staff report, which we've done.
So I didn't make a very specific recommendation because I wanted, it's kind of up to the board, but I am willing to say that, I think that this is a reasonable request, and it's similar to kind of the use of the other non-historic materials. And in this particular case, because it's not visible, I think that it's reasonable to approve it. I just would caution you against a blanket approval of this material in all
This approval
cases.
is for this
Site
application only.
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, further discussion at another time is going to be necessary just because of the decreasing availability and increasing cost of natural wood products and the increasing availability and necessity of using non-natural product. We're there with the siding.
Although in this case, yeah, that product there is typically more than wood.
Yes.
Well, at least cedar anyway. But yeah,
I would then entertain a motion
I think we have to close the public hearing.
Oh, you are right. We'll now close the public hearing portion of this meeting. Thank you, John. And proceed to discussion, and I would entertain a motion.
Were you going to make a motion?
I'm not going to make a motion. I'm here to rule on motions.
What was this one again?
Yeah, I can.
MD 1707?
modification,
Yeah.
something.
Let's keep moving. I'll make a motion to approve the modification 1707, located at 712 4th Avenue, to allow this product to be used on the deck for this house without any other modifications to that motion.
For this
But
house
it needs to be specific to this address only,
Is that
I guess.
your
Is
motion?
that would be my motion? That's
Okay.
good enough?
So approve the modification to allow this product to be used at this particular site
Site only.
Only,
only.
yes.
I'll second it with that on there.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will you
Okay.
please poll the board members?
Yes, Board Member Met,
Aye.
Board Member McLaughlin,
Aye.
Board Member Basinger,
Aye,
and Board Member Blythe.
Aye.
it is approved. And you don't have to tear the house down.
Thank you.
Was he here when you were reading? Like, I don't remember.
Were you here when we read the,
No, I was not. Sorry for the tardy and don't panic. I texted you. I thought this was at the courthouse, and so forgive the grammatical errors on my panic on my text that I shot you, but I was trying to break in the courthouse, so.
Oh, jeez.
Here we are. But no, I wasn't. I came in about 5 minutes after 7, so.
Some people are trying to break out of the courthouse.
Yeah, exactly.
So 5 minutes after 7, then you probably heard the spiel.
okay,
Sure.
yeah. All right. HR 17-10 for a covered porch addition on the new Tollefson House at 15831 Harley Avenue. So I would like to ask first, does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare?
Nope.
No.
Grant?
No.
Nor have I. Have commissioners visited the site?
Been by it.
Yep.
I have not visited this one yet.
I have visited the site.
Doesn't look like the picture.
No, that's circa 1898 or something. Yeah, it's been a while.
For the record, 3 commissioners have visited the site. So we'll now move to the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Basinger. We have a proposal here this is a historic designated structure outside of a district. It's in the Park Place neighborhood on the corner of Forsyth and Harley. And it's the Newt Tollefson, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, house. It's a nice Queen Anne style home, and the applicant has proposed to add a porch, a front porch to the structure, and has provided evidence in the form of this photo here of the original porch. And so this proposal is kind of a rehabilitation, not quite a restoration. There are some details of the original porch that are not included in the proposed design, but the proposed design is similar to the historic porch, the original porch. So let's see here. So close-up of the house as it exists today. And I want to explain also that the applicant already has staff level of approval to repair and replace the roof, siding, and windows with materials to match existing. So this proposal, I think that work has already begun because we were able to approve it at a staff level because it met the HRB policies completely. And so I worked with Christina on that, and so that work has begun. And the work that hasn't begun yet is the work to add the porch, because that was something that we wanted to bring to you. And so if you visited the site, then you may have seen some work going on. Lonnie can probably explain better than me. So here we've got, the front elevation of the house, got a 2-story porch design, and have a side-by-side with the historic. So the design is very similar to the original, with some elements removed. It's a little simplified from the original porch. So there, the spindle work and the pediment above the front door entry are left out of the proposed design, but the balusters and posts are kind of recreated. All materials are proposed to be natural wood. And I'm going to let the applicant explain more about this, but if you need me to scroll through any of this as you're talking, just let me know. So one second. So the condition, the only condition of approval that I recommend is just, these things are already kind of proposed, but just as a double check, when building permits are in for review, that no incised lumber pressure treated wood would be visible. All railings need to be installed with a perpendicular top and bottom rail. Composite or 3-tab roofing allowed on the porch, and that all the post, decking, railing, and stairs should be painted or paint stained to match the paint scheme of the house. And so, like I said, I think that these things are mostly already in the proposal. This is just a double check so that when a building permit comes, that we would check on all that. I believe that's it. Do you have any questions for me before?
Go back to that one you just had.
Yeah.
Sorry, which one?
The aerial.
The aerial. It was just there a second.
Oh, actually, so
It's the one right after-
we have a design device on the same site, so that slide is for the design device, but I can go to that. I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the house actually faces north. It doesn't face the street.
Yeah.
I know I drove down and around it, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to get out. And it's like, plus it was pouring down rain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Chunk of property.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're waiting for me, yes. We'll close the public comment portion and ask if there are. John,
He still needs to come and
Oh.
talk to us.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
We
Please
can
come
circumvent you and make it go
forward
quicker.
and just state your name and give us your presentation.
Thanks, by the way, for taking the time here. Lonnie Young is my name, and Timber Creek Custom Homes is my business. Beyond, I guess, the only thing we have proposed to put, natural surfaces, try to stay as period correct as we can. I guess, as you can see, the only real change is that little porch there that was originally really was not a covered porch per se. And if we're going to go back in, these are the reasons, if we're going to go back in with fir deck, we'd like to try to make it at least something that might last longer than, 5 summers or 5 winters through it. So we were kind of proposing to add just a little bit bigger porch to the project. And that's kind of the reasoning behind that, really, is about the best I can say. We're, throughout the rest of the house, we're gonna certainly go back in with what was there, in today's standards anyway, with cedar and whatnot. So try to do the best we can, but try to also create something that's going to last potentially a little longer than it may have, would be the reasoning, I suppose.
So it's close, but more of a simplified porch.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
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 The pediment is such a big portion of that one section, and
Yeah, it projects out.
Yeah,
And on the right side, it's like a little,
Some sort of an octagon.
yeah, like octagonal, half of one pops out, but, and a funky sort of stair thing going on. But,
almost makes you wonder if those are original stairs, the way they
I don't know,
have
they look,
those.
yeah,
They're
I don't know.
very odd looking,
And it looks like the handrail was like
enclosed.
squares or like
Lattice.
lattice, like a big
Yeah.
heavy lattice above and lattice below. I'm sure it's a much better improvement than what's there right now.
Yeah,
porch looks like
we're
it's-
not quite sure how long the whole thing has been gone, but it's
porch.
been a while.
Railing, original, it's
Yeah, it
all,
looks
it's
like squares, big squares.
Yeah, it looks like, lattice also, but kind of off.
Like a brick but see-through. But yeah, huh. So you're working on things now.
Yeah, we went ahead and we're gonna get going on the siding and window side of it.
When you say the siding, 'cause this is probably single wall construction, are you saying to take this siding off or cover it?
This siding has been taken off on the original house, now, or on the structure.
It's pretty bare now, I mean,
Shiplap.
Yeah.
Somewhat, I
Yeah.
should say.
Yeah.
I've seen worse, but I've also seen better. There's no question about that.
Yeah, the age of the house. It's a cool house.
probably still has a good view.
It's a little odd how the front of the house faces north and.
Well, they built it because that's,
Yeah,
the view
and who
is.
knows, obviously if you look at the original picture, the trees weren't necessarily,
tall.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, they probably had a nice, view down the, what is now the 205 corridor.
wasn't back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's got some nice decoration on it.
And we're obviously going back in with the scallops and whatnot, and we'll go in with what,
On the gable ends and stuff.
like I said, we've saved all the knee braces and whatnot. We're gonna try to utilize all those and try to bring it back to.
Yeah. We have the right architect.
Who's the architect? I didn't even say.
Todd Eisler.
Of course.
Cool.
So the balance of the structure will be restored pretty much to its original state. And the porch is being added. Is there an ADA requirement because this will be used as an office building?
It probably not. We will have what we're proposing in the future for this piece of property. There will be off the south side of the property or of the house is probably going to be more utilized in that capacity.
Like where the garage stuff is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to try to keep this as kind of a good separation around this house with the proposal that we have coming. And so this area out in front, which we're going to call the front, which again is kind of odd because it's actually the side, is going to be left as open and just kind of an area for.
So it won't be used as a residence?
Potentially there will be a manager in there, and that will be used as an office facility, for a gathering for the community.
Oh, gotcha.
because it's big enough and it has.
How close are you gonna bring the parking?
Parking.
Are you gonna have, like,
Wagons all around it.
yeah,
And if you guys have the time, I think we're gonna get some design advice
Yeah.
from the board.
So
And
after this,
after this, I can
Right,
show
right,
you
for the second part, yeah.
overall layout of what we're trying to accomplish on this piece of property, which
Cool.
there is a good amount of space around this house.
Yeah.
Unutilized, natural,
Nice big
I'm
piece.
hoping.
okay. Go.
And the porch cover, I can't tell from this view. Does it project beyond there? That's the answer to my question. It's flush with the rest of the front of the house. The roof sticks out just about a little bit. Architecturally, is that consistent with period architecture?
Right, with this house, I would say so, especially like if they're gonna do that with the balusters. I mean, it would have been nice to have that gabled pediment in the front.
It looks a little naked without it.
Yeah, it's just more work. This is a very simplified, streamlined deck. I mean, that octagonal thing on the corner looked pretty cool. I mean, even with this elevation, with the decoration on that facade, it's beautiful. There's a lot of detail.
Yeah. Very ornate.
I mean, if I looked at this and I came by, I'd probably say, I wonder if that was original, given that. But
Simple.
because it's simplified, although the porch that was there did have more detail that was more in keeping with the character of the house. So just, with that gabled pediment at the front, and then, yeah.
And the spindles.
The spindles are very much part of that Victorian kind of Queen Anne sort of transitional thing. But that octagonal porch, as useless as it was, really gave it an aesthetic. I get the spindle thing, that it's a maintenance thing, but
Or even
It's
to
a-
have a simplified frieze at the top there.
yeah, the cool thing is the roof that hangs down, that covers for that door, is pretty cool. But it probably, that pediment definitely stood proud. I don't think it was very thick. It looks like I bet it's maybe sticking out 12 inches because you can see the knee braces on either side. That it was more of a decoration, and I bet the back of it was flush with that facade. And it was probably just a solid wall in the back.
More decorative than
Totally decorative.
obviously, yeah.
I think I'm more enamored with the octagonal part on the right that sticks out, but that complicates the roof. But I'm pretty sure that octagonal thing on the right created its own little witch's hat roof, so to speak, that came around instead of a hip that they've got going now.
Right. You can kind of see that up in the tree.
Yeah,
If the tree wasn't there,
yeah, but you can sure see that kind of kid hanging out in that corner where it sticks out.
I do like that they're keeping above that second story porch, the little,
Yeah, it's existing.
yeah, they're keeping that and not, covering it up. But even just maybe something, little like a frieze or something up there, just a little decorative, and then coming down.
We were originally struggling, Todd and I both. What we can't see in that picture is where that gable ties into that rail. So if you come out onto that porch, you're going to be staring at the backside of a gable or a pony wall.
Right, but that's what they did originally.
Yeah.
Right.
And a little bit of that was to hide the door. Right now, I mean, of course, you're looking from the ground level up, but with that baluster that's there, you can see the full French door. And I'll bet you anything the door that was up there was either a full door or a half light. that it didn't matter. It was probably a solid door, I bet you. And yeah, when you're out there, you'd see the back of that, which was probably the shiplap. I'll bet you that was on the backside that created like a basically it was a solid handrail that frieze or pediment, or whatever you want to call it, was applied to that as a decoration. And then they brought with the post in the house those two knee braces that came out to hold that thing up. So it was kind of like it's almost like they made it, put it up there and stuck it.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a decoration thing. But I see what you're wanting to do on the drawings, or what Todd was thinking. What's that going to be up there where that door is?
Patio.
No, what's behind that door?
Oh, that's a hallway.
It's just a hallway.
Yeah, that's if you come up the main set of stairs, you head directly towards that.
So that brings a little light.
Yeah,
that's
that's the landing of when you're on the second floor to get back to the bedrooms and it's kind of hard to tell, but it kind of seems like that the original maybe master bedroom would have been on that. That's the first door that you hit when you turn the corner, and that was just a little. It seemed to be a little porch, a little landing.
The women had to take their airs because they needed fresh air back then.
Yeah.
They often had those. So that upper door will have a glass.
It's French door.
French-
It's full light glass.
Full light.
Yeah, full light glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that you've maintained the curve of that roof line coming down.
I'm sort of wondering about the angle of the hipped portion
It's pretty low.
compared to the main gable on the top. And
Right. And the gable up there is probably like a 10, and this is a 3. And
Can you go to the? That little hip up there is running at about it's probably an 8-9. It's right in there on the right hand side of the house.
yeah, but the other gable.
Yeah, the
Like I was
gable.
talking about, I bet they're all 8s to 10s, somewhere in there. But that original porch was pretty low pitched. But right here on this view, there would have been that octagonal thing sticking out that created that little roof hat that came across
Right.
over. That changed the look of what the roof was. And like I said, from this view, honestly, historically with a house like this, it could have been something like that, and you would have known the difference. But it has that original porch had a lot of decoration to it, which fits the house. So I'm a little torn of, hey, this looks great, it's simple, keep it simple. And then the other side of it's like, well, that picture may have done you in at the same time.
Are the posts turned?
They look turned.
Yeah.
The pickets and the posts.
Yeah, this is turned balusters.
Oh, it does.
There's nothing to go off of
There.
with those, it's just.
Duh, right there.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
The house was so ornate that it's.
Can I ask you, did you ask Todd to come up with something simple like this, or did he start with what was similar to the picture and scale back?
We actually came across this picture
Late.
way into the.
That's
into
what
the
I
game.
read, that I thought maybe you would have.
And it hadn't presented itself. The folks who owned it had the picture, and there was kind of the same picture in one of the historic archives, not near as good, and I was just able to get a hold of that thing.
Well, let me ask you
that was
something.
request.
I know money's everything, but if you were seeing that picture now and the detail that's on that and the house that you have, what is your inclination looking at that picture and the drawing that you have? Seeing the
Cost differences? Is that
no,
or-
I'm talking aesthetics, knowing that you have this house that has everything around it that's very ornate. Seeing that pediment in the front, the octagonal part of the deck, is that something that you would say, yeah, that'd be cool to do? Or, you know what, this is simple, and I'm asking you, what's your thought?
Well, again, I'm probably looking at it a little bit more from a functional side personally. I mean, what's going to last, what's going to be, still, I guess I look at it from the period side. Like you'd said, this very easily, we've seen enough of these houses would have had this. And it's kind of hard to tell on the picture just how far out that little deck originally, if it's 3 feet and then it hits its octagon and comes out, it's just kind of hard to tell there, to be honest, without a side shot.
You know what I would think it is? It comes out as a point. Mm-hmm. It comes out as a point. The roof comes, hits that, and then this side, what I'm looking at, that goes toward the next, goes back as a, oh heck, I don't know how to, so this comes out as a point right here.
Yeah,
That roof comes, this guy comes like this, forms that little valley.
It's octagonal.
This comes this, and then straight back.
Yeah, I'm looking at more like the actual, the deck itself. If you just move to the left just a hair, over right in there, and then up above. What's our coverage? Are we talking? Is it a foot? Is it 3 feet? Is it 2 feet?
What is it from here to the door?
About 8 feet.
8 feet?
Yeah.
It was at least 8 feet. Because
those
this
stairs are out
plane
from it.
comes straight across, because where this pediment is, here's the house, here's a post, and then you can see the 2 corbels, knee braces, come out about 10 to 12 inches.
If you look above on the roof, on what we would consider the roof, I'd be hard pressed to think that that's an 8-foot step. The shadow line just simply does not show that. I mean, it's more like 2.
Step back a little bit.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with that? And so I guess it just comes to fun. Again, if we go back in with something similar, we go in with a fir deck. To try to bring that together up there, how long are we going to get this thing to last again? Is it going to be 100 years or going to be 10 years? As you know,
Was it gone when you bought it?
Yes, and that's another thing that's a little odd to see here. There's a foundation, an existing stem wall that runs across and then returns.
Yeah.
Nothing that you can't really see.
Yeah, there's like that. You mean that concrete kind of thing? That's straight line.
There's a little step that doesn't show anything in regards to that to the bump out of what we're going to call a pentagon. Who knows what would have happened? That thing could have been gone for 90 years for all I know.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. But as far as the as far as the foundation goes, very difficult to see.
Well, it also could have just been a post on a rock too.
You're very
Very, or just a few bricks left over from the foundation. Well, I mean, here's the.
This looks better than what's there.
And the reality of it is, if this was here in the district somewhere, it would be very much more scrutinized. This thing's really out in the middle of nowhere. You kind of look at it as you're trying to make better. Well, I mean, like it's surrounded by,
That's the sad part of this. The front of this house is facing Tri-County heating and cooling.
That big old monstrosity.
It's surrounded. Nobody can see it. You have to see it. You have to physically be there to see it.
The front of it, as we're going to call front of Harley, does not do the house any justice whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, it's
the chimney and
dinger, really, in all intensive purposes. Obviously you're right. Money is important to me, but if you guys have time to look, or I'm not trying to get away with anything here financially or anything else. I just try to come up with something that's functional without throwing money away at something that, and again, if this was up here by the McLaughlin house, I wouldn't probably be here even requesting it. This is you'll never see the front of this. Everything that we're doing to this house right now, that we're proposing and doing to the rest of it, it will never be appreciated until you actually get out and walk down to it and get down behind it, you know, and so.
Something here, because it almost loses some of its, there's not the distinction between
Yeah, but you
But
could
I
also
don't know
say,
what.
oh, that matches because that's how it used to be with the handrail up there. Right?
but just below that, something that kind of defines right above the first floor door. But I don't know what. That would look correct.
Yeah, because there's quite a distance
Because
above
it's
it.
just it would define, you know, that little
I see that
entrance to the door.
That door's a half light. I was right. That's probably not original. Well, okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
I appreciate that you're putting something back there, you know, and I think we can live with that. Are we looking for, or we haven't had a
Are
discussion?
there further questions for the applicant?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For your time. And with that, we will close the public hearing and begin discussion. And we've had a lot of discussion already. And the key question appears to be whether it's reasonable or not to ask for the additional.
Well, yeah, I think part of it is if they can, you know, they're turning these posts, the spindles are gonna have a decorative look, they're gonna put the lattice back. There's a lot going on that makes it pretty close. So, in a simplified way,
What if they did like a, can't even think of it, like not a pediment, but something to put just right above the door, like a decorative cut, you know, with maybe,
the first level?
yeah. right
Like
above
here?
In that space there,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
like a decorative,
I see.
It didn't have it before. I mean, here's the original stuff.
right, but using this, you know, the kind of starburst that still they're gonna maintain up here.
Oh, you mean
Take
like in a half
something-
round?
A decorative, like a half round, that would kind of, it wouldn't be really expensive, but it would help. I think I'm bothered by the void because there's so much other decorative ornamentation on, you know, the surfaces, that when I look at this, that space above the first floor door
Well, you know
just
what-
seems naked.
The spindles that hang down soften that with the posts that were
Right.
here. And you could do something right here.
You know, just do
Where-
something
Is
to.
it okay for me to speak?
No.
No?
Oh,
Never mind.
Not right now.
All right.
We'll
But
get to you.
this, you could do something there that drops that down. is what
yeah,
you're saying.
something to just accentuate that, you know, right above the
Actually,
door.
you know, what could happen is these little angled things that are right here.
Oh, you
Those could
do
be
little-
applied with maybe without the spindles, but maybe these just go
Yeah.
up in here like this, just to make it a little bit
Just-
more decorative.
Right, just to
To give
add
it
a
a little
little bit
gaudiness.
more,
Yeah,
just a little bit more
Yeah.
oomph than just, you know,
that
'cause-
would work, and that's a very
and
simple.
it's very simple and pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, without the spindles, just do the angle things.
Want to explain it, what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Where-
so these things right here,
And they're kind of starbursty,
Yeah.
aren't they?
kind of you put it right there in the corners. So where the posts are, maybe without these things,
Without the spindles.
you could just put these in the corners of each of the posts.
These guys.
Yeah, those things, that'll kind of
Decorative.
soften the
I
height.
can't think of what those are
Make it
called.
look like a little bit more decorative. That would be a simple fix.
Just to
So
add
some sort of-
a little bit more of an ornamentation without going full bore.
Yeah, those
Talking
half.
about putting them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and you see how
the
the
starbursty,
starburst thing up at the upper roof? See that right? Yeah.
yeah, right there.
They make those things pre-made that could be applied in those corners. That would Give it a cheap, oh, sorry,
That's okay. I'm gonna move over here.
sorry.
That's
I
okay.
gotta keep it in my seat. It's something that's possibly an inexpensive fix that,
But
you know,
it kind
jazzes
of
up
gives a
those
little
corners.
bit of, a little bit more ornamentation without being super spendy. I mean, I don't think they're that.
That's a thought. But we'd have to open up the,
We can reopen the public hearing and ask the applicant if that would be an acceptable idea.
Good. Right. Yeah, I was just going to throw one thing out there. Do you see, being that he was a Norwegian, Tollefson, you see the piece that I've saved on the top of the gable up there?
Oh,
The very
yeah,
top?
yeah, the gable end.
That's very much within that was his own style. And what would you think about doing something like that above that?
But see, that also kind of replicates the starbursty kind, those lines. So something similar,
You
like
could
a
do it.
half,
Sorry.
like half of that but it would be more upside down, wouldn't it?
What were you suggesting?
Well, trying to come up with something to kind of, because we do have that piece and we're going to put that piece back in.
That's awesome.
Somehow maybe bring something like that down into,
yeah, you cut it in half.
Half
and
and
you
turn
can-
it upside down.
You could take a smaller scale of that
yeah,
and put it in the corners, and that
right,
would be,
Like a
something
half
like.
of it.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going, and kind of keep that sweeping, just to kind of, and then tie those
Yeah.
pieces together similar to that.
yeah, at each post.
Yeah.
They'd
On
go
either
like this.
side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the post, maybe we go with just kind of a sweeping, kind of the idea of that sweeping, kind of a sweeping knee brace on each post.
Right, and bring that solid piece of the post down further to accommodate that, and
Right.
then the turnings down below. Yeah, that solves a lot.
cool.
That gets you something that's like, hey, this ties in.
Right, and it
need a
because there's so
laser.
much ornamentation on the rest of the house, it's that would add a little bit, and I think it would make it seem like it fit better.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good collaboration of an
Oh, I
idea.
can appreciate and to be honest, I probably would have not left the post just like that. I would have probably done some sort of a knee brace of some kind, just to
Yeah,
kind
but-
of
In
dress it up. But
kind of in his tribute, replicating that.
That'd be
you know,
pretty
off
easy
of
to
that,
do.
or even like or you could do like the starbursty thingamajigger.
As a condition of approval, how would you describe that?
As a condition of approval, it would be
Replicate.
replicating the gable
And?
ornamentation to be replicated on a half.
There's a name.
Killing me, man.
I,
What would you
Those-
call it?
I can,
Decorative knee brace that would be applied to each post,
Either side of
at either side of the post,
in scale.
at the, just as a knee brace at the top of the post, something like that. But I guess if we do a motion, we can wing it as we go, right?
You
Yes,
have an
we can.
idea.
Yeah,
Would you like me to
From
share
listeners.
my notes? That might help a little bit.
sure.
So I have add angled ornamentation that fills the void above the front door that is informed by the gable at the top. And include decorative sweeping knee braces on each post.
Sure, make that motion.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. We could, yeah, you can help along with whoever makes the motion. How's that? Yeah,
Just like she said.
but you'd be groovy with that.
So,
Yeah. So then we
okay.
can close it then and be
Then
done.
we can close the public hearing and perhaps have a motion
So moved.
forward.
What you said. Amended to include that.
The conditions of approval already stated in the staff
Right.
report, plus the additional
Additional.
condition that the fenestration or ornamentation
not
be
fenestration.
added to the,
Are you saying that?
am I what?
Are you saying it?
I'm making it up. I'm winging it, just like
Well-
you said.
Then one of us should probably do it.
Yes.
Come on, Grant, you can do it. Or if you want me to, I can.
I move to approve HR 1710, approval for a covered porch at 15831 Harley Avenue with the recommended conditions of approval and the addition of an additional condition that ornamentation be added to the porch
Top of the posts.
consisting of knee braces off the posts that echo the design elements on the main structure,
Gable.
Gable
the
end.
gable end of the main structure of the home.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think that.
I think I like that.
I would second that.
All right. It
Yeah.
has been moved and
Did you
seconded.
get all of that?
Yes, and I just want to make sure that as far as findings go, that the reason for this condition is in order to fill the void between the door and the top of the, basically the porch roof.
Well, and also just to make it not quite as simple as the rest, to kind of mirror more of the ornamentation on the rest of the house.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to do a simplified
Version, yeah.
of
Yeah.
what's there, because what's there is
Pretty
very
decorative.
complex. So, and given the location of the home and the use of the home, it's reasonable. But
And have it had to scale, yeah.
And did I seconded it, I think, or did you?
You
No,
did.
I guess I did,
You
okay.
Okay, and when you're done writing.
I want to
your-
get my notes correct here. Okay,
The heck is that?
That's
are we ready?
historic photo.
Oh,
Board Member Met,
Aye.
Board Member McLaughlin,
aye.
Board Member Basinger,
Aye.
and Board Member Blythe.
I
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yay. I think that'll look good.
Yeah, and that's pretty simple fix.
Okay,
So we move on to agenda item number 5.
This is where the part of the meeting that costs money because it's extra, right?
Design
Dinner,
advice for the rest of the project.
oh, sorry.
And for design advice, we proceed directly to the applicant's ideas and,
I'm happy to give a little bit of explanation. I'm not sure what order you usually do design advice in, but I'm happy to talk before or after.
well, if you have a staff report, then we'll hear that
Okay,
first.
great.
And then
I have a couple things and then you can add whatever you need to add. Okay. So this property is, the zoning here is R2, multifamily. So at some point, the city rezoned a portion of this area for multifamily. It was seemingly a good place to add some needed housing. And, it's fairly flat, not a whole lot of overlays or anything. And so essentially what I think would happen in this instance is that the size of the landmark would be reduced. So similar to what you all did earlier this year with the Hackett House, kind of reducing the size of the landmark so that the development on the remainder of the property does not have to go through your review process. So the application would still come to you to reduce the size of the landmark, and you can apply conditions to that, and you can apply conditions to what the rest of the development looks like to an extent, but then you would be kind of releasing the design review of the multifamily project to just our general city design standards, if that makes sense. So The applicant is also asking about potential preservation incentives. There are two that were brought up. One is reducing the density slightly from, I think, to meet our minimum density would be 23 or 24 units, and they're wanting to find out if they can do 22. That's not something that we can really award as a preservation incentive. Those are mostly just for setbacks and dimensional standards. And so that sort of change or request would be something that would have to go to the Planning Commission. The other preservation incentive that was brought up was setbacks on the building, some of the buildings, and I'll go to this layout here. We have minimum setbacks, maximum setbacks, many times for multifamily and commercial development. And there's a bit of a slope on Forsyth, and so the setbacks on this, let's see, can I use my mouse here? I think this structure here and potentially this one, are requesting maybe to increase the maximum. And all I'll say about that is that if the request would somehow reduce the impact of this new construction on the historic landmark, then the Historic Review Board can consider it. But if the setback of these buildings really doesn't have any impact or doesn't reduce any impact to the structure, then I would say it's maybe outside of the review board's purview.
So the bummer is that tree goes away, a big, beautiful oak.
Yeah, so I do want to point out on the inventory form, a couple things. You know, it was built 1893. The inventory form does mention the site and the landscape. It talks about large trees and shrubs. It's not very specific. And so, you know, it's always a gray area as to when landscape is kind of talked about in those inventory forms. So, you know, whether that's actually something that adds to the landmark or doesn't. And so we don't really have clear track record on how we handle that when trees are mentioned in the description. But in this case, there are trees mentioned in the description. I think I have. Oh, so, and you can see the large oak here, and probably a Doug fir, maybe.
It's not that old.
Yeah.
That one's not.
Looks like the only really old thing is that oak tree.
Oak tree.
Yeah. So when considering reducing the size of the landmark, I think what to look for is the views of the structure itself from the street. So how is the new development impacting the view of this property from the street? What's the separation from the structure? You know, are we leaving enough space around it so that it can kind of stand on its own? And then, you know, does the design and type of architecture is, you know, something that the board could look at and, you know, talk about conditions that maybe would apply to the design of the buildings on the rest of the site. So a couple things, a couple examples from recent years. One is the Hackett House, where you approved a reduction of the size of the landmark and mostly talked about landscaping, I think, adding landscaping, preserving existing landscaping, but not wanting to add landscaping that would obstruct the views of that structure. And then there was also in 2006, historic home on Beamer Way on a large lot, and the applicant applied for a partition to build more houses next door. And that house, the historic home was built pretty close to the street. And so the condition of approval back then was that the new houses be built, have a larger setback, so that that house could be more prominent and they were set back farther. And I think there were some tree planting requirements in addition to kind of shield the new houses from the old. And there were some design guidelines that were applied to those new homes as well. So that's what we've done in other similar cases. But you can kind of discuss lots of different ideas and conditions that you might apply to this. And I've got the renderings from the applicant here. So you can see the original structure and the new. Got that one, and then the elevation of, I guess, one of the,
Yeah,
they might
all
not,
of them will be, there's three threes,
threes,
2 fours,
and a 5. So, yeah, so that's just example of the design.
What's your timeline on this? Like when you're hoping to
Yes,
plant these? Yeah.
No, we've had it for about a year. We allowed the folks to stay in it for 8 or 9 months so they could get their things together and whatnot. It was an older couple, and so we're just moving forward to try to, I'm just coming off of we're in the middle of a Washington County thing that's 2 years, so I'm hoping to do it a little quicker than that, just because it's a little.
Sure. Well, that one rendering, yeah. So from at least the street as you're going by, it's visible, potentially, right? From this one and the other side. So.
It'd probably be more visible than it is now because the access will be there.
Yeah, it'll be open and wide, and you can see a little bit from here.
Are we talking about?
Did you want to add anything?
That was the whole thought process on how we laid this out. I mean, we're not trying to, as we're trying to limit maybe a unit or two just to give some space. I'm not here, this is not, I don't want to come in and stuff this thing to the max of whatever we can possibly do, and I'm not really interested in building your quintessential dinger apartment, to be honest with you. I'm trying to create something that's a little nicer than that, a little better feel. I mean, we're not about counts and, we want X amount of units per, doors per acre, it has to make financial sense. But this one, we worked real hard to try to, along with Kelly with some help, try to create, and to be honest with you, I think we've certainly come close. This house will be more of a focal point than it is right now. There's no question about that.
Are these apartments or condos?
They're going to be apartments. I mean, it's one lot, but there it won't. So there's not 22 tax lots there, so it will be an apartment.
Right. Can I ask? I can't really see what it says or anything, but these lines coming down on the left that are kind of
that's where the slope. That's where it drops off tremendously down to the tri-county.
That's what I thought, but I just couldn't read. I still can't read.
That's 40. What is that? 46 feet. The first note. It looks like to me to the edge of the house. Up if you go up there a little bit, right there. I believe that's 46.
That's what I can't.
I could be wrong.
I can't see it. That's what I was asking. What that?
I don't think it should.
That's why I was curious what the slope was. How that?
It's pretty.
The lines that are curvier. I can't read it. I don't have my
I got
glasses.
you here. We're looking at that line is 46.7. What lines aren't as bad as I thought they were. And then it goes to 43.
See 43.
And then 53 would be the third line.
It's not good enough, huh?
No, they are, but it's just
So
fuzzy.
the first line that hits the bump out on the existing house, that first one there.
That's what I can't.
Is 46.7.
Okay, I could see the 43. I didn't know what that was, and I didn't see what the bottom was, where the curves are coming. The top of the
Contour line.
And so this part of the property is actually in our geologic hazard overlay.
It's more embarrassing for me than. I'm sorry.
Why did you just wear them? I guess my only little concern, it's not huge, is at the back of the house, the far end of the house, is how close, because that's parking, that's gonna be paved area, right?
Yes.
As to how close it gets, to the house.
And I can give you
I'd like
we've
to.
got 80, we've got 81 feet from property line to there. We're gonna have that sidewalk, that'll be 10, 15,
Away from the house?
15-ish, from the house to the front of the curb. So you'll have planter, and then sidewalk entering the house from that continues around there. So most of that you see in between will be landscape, some sort of landscape.
So the lighter dotted area
That's
is
sidewalk, yes.
That's sidewalk.
Yes.
I'd just like to see it a little bit further back so that there's more of a space between that and
And I don't know if you know that most of that is going to be. Let's see here. We've got one. I wouldn't call it overflow parking because we've already overparked this thing, or we've got it.
It could be for fire.
It's a fire. There's two. Obviously, you see one here and one
two
there.
hammerheads.
Yeah, and so it's a fire.
It's for them to turn around.
Yeah. They'll have to pull in there, and they have to have a space to back. And that would be the only problem is that there's a minimum between that sidewalk and the unit number 1.
Yeah.
That you see there that we just have to meet that requirement. And I have no
Could you
problem.
back it further back and, just.
That, and again, that will come simply down to if I don't mind moving that as far as I possibly can to
Just to
meet the
give
code
more of a buffer.
And if you notice this entrance coming to Forsyth there, that's actually going to be a fire gate.
So you've got one entrance in and out.
One entrance in and out.
Well, at least I think it's good that all these units are pushed to the outer perimeter.
Yeah, we really concentrated on trying to give this. I mean, if you notice there's a lot of space between that from the first hammerhead to that house. I mean, there's going to be.
But that's kind of the back of the house, isn't it?
It is. That'll be a ton of green space in through there.
Yeah.
The 3 units in the lower left,
Yep.
are they different somehow? They're not drawn in. They're not shaded.
They are fronting Forsyth, so they'll be, and there are if you know the 5 units in the middle that you see, units 22 through 18.
Yeah.
Those are going to be front-loaded garages, which kind of meets. If you go to the colored picture, that'll show those being front. The other, the
rear.
7 through 14 will be rear, and also 15 through 17 will be rear. So we're because this is what they've required of us, we're going to have the fronts of units 15 through 17 as actual front facade or front elevations, but they'll be rear loaded.
Garage, okay.
Okay.
Still trying to fight that one, but nobody's listening.
Gotta try.
I think even with this, it still lends quite a lot of land in the back for where the house is. And it still gives that straight, even though this is sloped through here, a shot looking at the house from here.
But you can't really, I mean, you can.
No, this would
like
be.
when I was looking
it's
at
like,
it,
but this shot's a much better look.
right.
Yeah.
It's good use of the space. Heck. Housing's of a need.
Yeah, I think what we did with Hackett House was reasonable and reducing the historic properties so that we don't need to get into the details of the rest of the law. So as long as we're happy with a reduced boundary of the historic property, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think if, on that backside, if just try to get it back as far away, from
Yeah, the
encroaching on that.
lack of a front lawn, you know, you've got that historic photo with the people out in the grass in front of the houses. It does feel like it's up, the asphalt's up pretty tight, at least the way the rendering looks, you know, where the vehicles
Yeah,
are.
that's my only really,
Yeah, that colored picture showed. Yeah.
With the Mustang or whatever that is, looks
oh, the blue and white.
pretty close to the.
Well, those people are having a good time there,
Yeah.
so it's a happening place.
I don't think that as far as the historic so that was on 17 or 15, 16, 17, is that where the
Where what?
Yeah,
the
no, the 15, 16, 17
preservation
are
incentives
long
were the
foresight.
setback?
You're looking at 22
Yeah,
Yeah,
through 18.
yeah, the 15, 16, 17 is
which,
down that
which
way.
Units were you looking
Off
to
of-
Yeah,
Those
that's
ones
these
are
right
request
here.
the
Yeah.
setback incentive?
15, 16.
15, 16, 17, I
two.
believe is what yeah,
Foresight.
what we were looking at there.
And in this, there's a slope here, right? The road kind of starts to go downhill, and so, I think,
Can't see those numbers.
I mean, you all, can discuss this, but there are also ways through the type 2 site plan design review, to get modifications, if you can show that you better meet the standard with a different design, and you can increase your setback by adding pedestrian amenities and things like that. So there might be other ways to get that setback increased.
Yeah, my initial inclination anyway is that if we were to reduce the scope of the historic property, that doesn't really fall into, it's far enough away from where we're talking that it doesn't really affect one way or another.
It's pretty far away.
It does, it may make sense. It looks like it seems reasonable to me somewhat, but it seems like it's probably for the scope of the planning commission to look at that issue specifically for those units, not ours.
Yeah.
As it doesn't really affect the historic characteristics of the property.
Yeah. I would agree with what Grant said, but all of it looks pretty cool. Yeah. I think if anything, it might accentuate the house just because it's more on display. You can see it. And these people are clearly walking toward it.
Yeah, because they're giving away free wine back there.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
It's kind of like,
It is nice that the front of the home's accessible.
Right, you can
Right,
get to it
that
more. It
it's
looks
more
like you can see it,
noticeable
and
than-
it
yeah.
looks
This
like
will be
it's
the first time that the front of that house has been used for probably 80 years. To be, I mean, from what it looks to me, to be honest.
Well, and everything kind of looks like, what is that back there? And that's obviously the front of the house with the stairs. So, yeah, it's good.
it's kind of like the way the Ainsworth house, but it has more of a buffer, but it, when you're driving and all of a sudden here's,
There it is.
yeah.
Yep.
We've tried really hard to come up with something again that is going to be great for Oregon City and not completely. I think we're saving something that was going to be in the ground eventually, in my opinion, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Does that help any?
Thank you, appreciate it.
I think the appearance, as you've drawn them and rendered them here in
Yeah.
these,
It's not that close.
I don't, yeah, on the picture, on the drawing.
make them very attractive units.
Excuse me. Yeah, cool.
And it pulls that kind of using the
Yeah, a little bit of
siding,
decoration.
yeah.
Well, one of the comments that Christina had just
It's a
to
little
share with
craftsman.
you, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
is if you're concerned at all about the design of what else goes on the site, even if you reduce the size of the landmark, these are fairly craftsman style.
Yeah.
And you have a Queen Anne house, so if that was any conflict
neighborhood.
that you saw, then
It did occur to me a little bit that instead of the shake shingles, there's like the scalloped on the historic property, and that you could take some of the cues from that house, but I'm not sure that we want to get into that because I don't know that it's going to be reasonable for these type of units.
Not for us.
I think when you get into that, then you start getting into roof pitch and a whole lot of.
Yeah, and this could have been plain Jane vinyl
Yes,
boxes.
I mean, I think they've gone above and beyond as far as adding some design elements to make it, kind of reflective of, a subsequent, like in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And again, the design.
And with the garage doors
guidelines
and the
don't
front doors.
require
Yeah.
it to look historical. It just requires it to be non-distracting from the historical
Right.
asset.
And I would
That's
prefer it be its own thing rather than be kind of a half,
Yeah,
a weak attempt at.
yeah. This is nice. It looks pleasant.
Yeah, I think they've.
The scale's good.
Gone
The
to-
aesthetic is there. So cool.
Great.
And with
That'd be-
having the additional,
So-
on the old house, having the
I
additional
have to ask
ornamentation really kind of.
the
Yeah.
terrible
sets it apart.
question. How hard did you try to save the big oak tree?
Well, the oak tree, it might make you a little at ease, but the oak tree, I mean, again, I'm not, I could have went in and cut that oak tree down 8 months ago and probably never questioned it, but I don't like to do that. I don't, neighbors get excited, everybody gets, there is really no way I mean, I would have never met the density. We would have lost 4 units because the reality is we cannot go. It doesn't show up that well on this picture, but if you look at the topo of the drop on this property,
On the left.
there's a ton of it that we can't use. I mean, there's no way to. So we would literally have had to lose probably 3-4 units.
Yeah, that
3
that
for
really
sure.
was the essence of my question.
And that's really what it came down to. I mean, it would have made this piece of property. We would have never met
Would have
the
penciled
distance.
out.
I would have moved if like where the existing house is. If there was a way to turn around for fire and take 4 and put them there, I would have. We just simply can't do it.
So you can mill it into the hardwoods for all the units. That's a great idea.
No, it's great, but yeah.
It's a lot of good
again,
firewood.
my excavator developed the piece across the street there, 15806, 15804, and 50, whatever those are. And there were about 15 of those oak trees on that piece of property, the exact same size, and every one of them had a 3-foot hole in them. They
Oh,
were
you
all-
could take the excavator and probably push that thing
Yeah,
right over.
Yeah.
they were not.
They
I
only
mean,
have a
it's
lifespan.
listen, that's why I didn't do that in the beginning, because I just felt like, if there's a way to make it work, but to lose 3 units and lose the entire project over it, I can't, I mean.
No, I've
just-
seen trees
We're,
that size.
we're
just
not the
pushed.
tree police.
Yeah,
When you
it
start
didn't make
building around
sense,
it too, it affects the whole.
Oh, yeah, there's
you
good
know.
But
firewood
it
there,
is,
man.
it is an issue that sometimes people get emotional about, so.
yeah.
Tree huggies.
And hence why I didn't go in and cut the tree down and start this whole
Smart.
process off on the wrong foot.
Right.
Don't cut it down, just go knock it down because it'll go.
Yeah, and you could build around it, and just by building around it, you affect the, and
Too much valuable
wouldn't
real
be
estate.
surprised, wouldn't be survive.
With what's going on in Oregon City, as far as the infrastructure and the development, we just feel good about what we're trying to do here, and that's what we're.
Cool.
I imagine that the planning process will involve some mitigation, landscaping.
Absolutely, yeah. The tree, any of the tree removal, mitigation is required. And so we had a pre-application conference a little while back, and we talked about all those things through the site plan design review process. So I think what they'll do is probably come to the historic review board first to get the landmark reduced, and then submit a site plan application for a type 2 review.
Okie dokie.
There's an interesting note. I don't know if you guys looked at the inventory form, but there's a full 2nd-story deck on
The deck.
at some point. It says 1990 was when this,
Interesting. Yeah.
just as a curiosity.
And it's more like the one in the drawing,
Yeah.
as it terms in some ways.
Oh, that
Alrighty,
was a
good.
Redaway. Ha! I knew him.
Thanks. I hope we helped.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys taking the time to get us through here.
Rock and roll.
Okay.
Kelly, can I look at you had one picture there that I was really interested in that I did not
that
have
it?
for some reason. Can I come over
Oh.
and bug you?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was,
Jane Morris.
just on the rendering.
So,
I was helping them with that.
You grabbed
Yeah,
I
the
gave you all of
inventory.
my
Yeah,
copies
these.
of my,
I used to do
no, actually
walking
the,
tours,
on the.
Goodness, I was in college then.
Yeah.
You were
keep
what?
going there.
I was in college in
Oh, I'm an
1990.
old lady.
No,
Were you?
I'm an old man.
Because I
No, I got you by-
everybody have a
all
chance
those
to
copies?
read
Is
the
there any way
meeting
that you have
minutes
them with you or
that,
at the
I only read the
office?
ones that I was
that you were
Oh.
part
there.
of?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Out of the four, I
It
was
might
there
be
for
in-
first.
I read them all.
Yeah, if there are
I'm sorry, are you
multiple
retired?
copies, just take your copy out.
Every day's a Saturday, Ken.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard to kind of remember some of them, but it's like,
Yeah.
Regarding
Alright.
the
Oh, they're not on
approval of
here.
the meeting minutes, the one thing, and really the only thing that I noticed is in a couple of places in talking about Third Avenue or Fourth Avenue in Kenema, they were referred to as Third Street or Fourth Street.
Oh, instead of avenues.
Yeah, and I didn't mark it down because I think in context, everybody knows what we're talking about, so I wasn't going to ask for a change.
Do you approve for, as a group or do you each month?
I did get confirmation today that you can approve the batch of 4 sets of minutes together with one motion and one vote.
And if I was only at one of 4, I still
Yes.
vote.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks a
Good
lot
luck.
for taking the time. Thank you.
If you were not at the meeting, it's still okay to motion or
Okay,
vote. Yeah.
gotcha. Oh, that would be nice to package and then we can rock and roll.
Yeah, well, as I said, that was the only thing. I thought they were very thorough and complete to compliments
That's
to
what I was
whoever.
intended to do. make you
We
fall
do have a
asleep.
transcriptionist,
Goodness.
but we were informed recently that we're going to start doing action minutes, and so there won't be as much detail about the discussion since we have that on video, that we're not going to transcribe it all.
There's not
And
much action
so
going on here.
I think maybe the next sets of minutes that you approve, and like for this meeting, for example, when you end up approving these minutes, they will be very summarized with mostly just the actions
Action
and
and
the
right,
motions and votes.
motions.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Stop that.
Oh,
Make us
goodness
fall
me.
asleep.
It's time to get going. I am pooped.
Well, I would entertain a motion for approval of the 4 sets of minutes.
I will move to approve the minutes of the February 28th, March 28th, July 25th, and August 22nd, 2017, approved as submitted. Or as corrected with the avenues and the streets.
Okay.
Do you want,
you want that
to
in there?
amend them to correct that, or do you want to just leave them as is?
I'm indifferent on it. I don't think it's really worth the
They're
effort.
they're
to-
in Kenema, so all of the ones in Kenema are avenues, so. Just as submitted.
Okay.
As submitted, yep.
So we need a second, then I'll second it.
Okay. Board Member Blythe,
Aye.
Chair Basinger,
Aye.
Board Member McLaughlin,
Aye.
Board Member Met.
Right.
Great. And I do have a couple little communications before we go. If you don't mind.
Sign out.
Yeah, okay. January 30th, we're holding Historic Preservation Open House. Christina and I will be at the
What's the 30th?
library from 5 to 8. So the homeowner packets went out at the very end of December. So I have the brochures if you want to take copies. But we sent out the brochures along with HRB policies, information on the grant program, and this open house flyer. So this is really meant for anyone who owns a historic structure to come and talk to us about, alterations they want to make, or, work they want to do or grants they want to apply for. And so Christina and I are going to be there to kind of talk through the policies and design guidelines with them.
What time?
5 to 8 on the 30th. And so you all are more than welcome to join. It's certainly not
Open to the
required.
General public?
Yes, so we'll be in the community room at the library. We'll just be there to talk to folks and answer questions, really informal.
Has this been publicized?
So this flyer was sent out to everybody that got the homeowner packet. So I think we mailed almost 500 of the packets. So all the owners of historic properties received one. And then we've got it on the city calendar, and we're going to ask this week for it to be emailed out to like the Citizen Involvement Committee and other city groups, neighborhood associations, especially Kenema McLaughlin. But I have extra copies. You want to take one? Pass. And feel free to take more than one, and you can give them to your neighbors. The other item.
I didn't hear that night.
I am going to be here. No, I can't do that.
I think the other item that I wanted to share with you is just that the homeowner packets went out, and I have some stacks of those brochures if you would like to take any with you before you go.
If there's nothing else, we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you for the dinner.
You're welcome.